Listeners, in case this makes it to the cold open, I was just about to start recording the podcast without pressing record, but Eric just saved this entire audio recording.
Saved the day
Eric,
again. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to the GD Politics Podcast. I'm Galen. It looks like the backlash to Trump is going global. In the US, Trump's popularity hit a low of about net negative 10 percentage points right as he clocked 100 days in office. But abroad, the political impact of Trump's first 100 days is perhaps more tangible. In both Canada and Australia, the Liberal parties, which looked destined for defeat just months ago, came roaring back. A week ago, Canada's Liberals won the most seats in Parliament in the country's national election, ensuring that Prime Minister Mark Carney would serve the Liberals' fourth consecutive term in control of government. The party came just shy of a majority, meaning they'll rely on votes from other parties to pass their agenda. But even that performance was unimaginable at the start of the year, when the party was polling at a 24-point deficit on average to the Conservatives. And over the weekend, Australia's Labor Party secured a second term for Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, expanding its majority in what Australian analysts have been calling a landslide. Just 2 months ago, Australia's Conservative Party, the Coalition, was leading in the polling averages. In Canada, Trump played an explicit role in the campaign after suggesting an annexation of the country. In Australia, his role was less explicit, but the turnaround in fortunes for the center-left is a difficult story to tell in either country without the Trump factor. And in both countries, the conservative leaders who got compared to Trump lost not just the election, but their own seats in parliament. I would have jumped on the Canadian result sooner had I not been on vacation, but better late than never, as we say. So joining me today are the two Canadian analysts I knew I had to call when the election was first scheduled. Author of The Writ, Eric Grenier. Welcome back to the podcast, Eric.
Happy to be here.
Also here with us is author of 338 Canada, Philippe Fournier. Welcome back to the podcast, Philippe.
Good to see you again, Galen.
And I will again mention that you co-host the podcast The Numbers, or Les Chiffres, because it's in both French and English. So you are Canadian election experts, so maybe this question is a little unfair, but it's also hard to ignore the past weekend's results in Australia. Philippe, do you think it's fair to draw a Trumpian through line, as I did in the introduction?
Well, to some extent, yes. I mean, the world, the Western world, and I know Australia is not the West, but it's Western enough, has, there's many parallels we can draw, and we've seen what the uncertainty and the chaos caused by the Trump administration in the US. Globally, there's people who recoil from that, and I think people on the center and center left can sometimes mend their differences against a common opponent, and I think that's what we saw. At least partially in Australia, and that's what we saw in Canada as well.
Yeah, I think that, while neither of us are experts in Australian politics, you do see the similarities that this was a party that was trailing in the polls. It seemed to be in a lot of trouble, that it wouldn't get reelected. The opposition party, which was a more conservative party, which would be more aligned to Donald Trump and the Republicans, at least in ideology, at least in worldview, in some extent, doesn't adjust and gets trounced by the center-left party, which is more willing to take on Donald Trump. I think the biggest difference, though, between the two is that Canada has been directly impacted and threatened by Donald Trump and the U.S. administration. Australia in other ways, in the same way that other countries have been. And also, adding Canada to the Donald Trump's map of risk looks a lot better than trying to get Australia, which wouldn't really make it. Doesn't. What did he say, that the map looks beautiful if the continent was all one? I guess Australia is just a bit too far to get included into that.
Yeah, I've seen analysis of the Australian election that did emphasize this difference, in that in the Canadian election, the United States and Trump was a very explicit part of the campaign, whereas it was less explicit in Australia, but there's still some suggestion that Trump played a role. And I'm curious if it just has something to do with being large